Ready for filming. Action! What will the Ministry of Industry and Communications propose?
On my desk, I have a truly iconic item from the USSR harbinger of the musical revolution. Devices like this, together with headphones, will finally push stationary hi-fi systems into the background and make people listen to music wherever it's convenient for them. At the same time, they will seriously undermine the very culture of listening to music, which I always care deeply about. So let's use this time capsule as an example to travel back to the past, examine it from all sides, and in the end we'll even turn it on and listen to how it sounded if it plays at all. In the Soviet Union, during the 1970s and 1980s, tape recorders were not just household appliances, they became symbols of freedom, self-expression, and youth culture that was striving to break free from control. In an environment of strict censorship, when access to Queen, ABBA, Wham, and other iconic Western music was limited, devices like these became a real lifeline of their time. They made it possible to record, copy, and share music that barely trickled through the Iron Curtain, creating a unique phenomenon known as magnetizdat. Nowadays, you can send any information to the other side of the globe in just 2 clicks. But back then things were much more complicated, my friends. The romantic 306ers, by the way, is the first modification, appeared in 1979 and quickly became extremely popular, beloved, and a very reliable companion for the progressive Soviet citizen. The series of these tape recorders began in 1965, when the Gorky Petrovsky plant in Nizhny Novgorod released the first version, the romantic M64, which was not only one of the very first Soviet portable transistor tape recorders, but also a reel-to-reel model. Production capacity was insufficient, so later the Petropavlovsk actuator plant in Kazakhstan joined in the manufacturing. Our hero became one of the most popular cassette player soups in the USSR. And all because it combined the advanced technologies of its time, such as recording, portability, and a very practical design which could even now compete with some Bluetooth speakers. And of course, its insane loudness. Power! They used to say there was no sex in the Soviet Union, but there was love and, along with it, ghost standards. The 306 model was no exception. Classified as a third complexity group device, it was designed for the mass consumer, although not everyone could buy it. You see, back then, everything literally cost next to nothing. It was written that a worker could almost eat at a restaurant every day. But the problem was the limited quantity of goods. They simply couldn't produce them fast enough. That's why there were lines for cars, apartments, good shoes, or a suit, which as a rule would be snapped up as soon as they hit the stores because everything was cheap. But there was this small gap. So who got our romantic? Its excellent quality and, of course, reliability were noted. These are what essentially made it a legend. The success of the model was obvious. So production of the 306 continued with minor changes for almost 10 years. During this time, several modifications were released, including the Romantic with the letter M 306, the modernized Romantic M 361 with a new panel layout and a plastic handle, which is exactly the version we have here. And an especially rare, so to speak, limited edition Romantic 306-2 was released at the end of the 1980s. After the fall of the Titan, known as the USSR, the Gorky plant was reorganized and it began producing oil equipment. At least it wasn't kitchen appliances, like what happened with the rocket and space corporation Energia. I still remember that mega death machine with the razor-sharp blades gathering dust somewhere at my dacha. Can you imagine? Instead of producing Buran shuttles, they started making kitchen appliances. The design for that time was gorgeous, and the size was reasonable too, weighing in at 4.3 kilograms with the batteries. Yes, it's mono, yes, it lacks bass, it only plays from 63 to 10,000 Hz, but older people will definitely hear everything it blasts out of its indestructible speaker. By the way, the power is 0.5 watts and up to 4 when plugged into the mains. Can you imagine a genuine Soviet 4 watts? If, let's say, you converted that to Chinese or some European standards, I think, well, someone would probably claim 40 watts like the Chinese might. But for us, it's 4, but they're honest watts. Talkov TDK. The set used to come with 2 cassettes, but in later models closer to the collapse of the USSR, that nice bonus was removed. They say that under socialism, nothing was spared for the people, so when manufacturing the tape recorder, how much do you think was used? For each unit, gold 0.297 grams, silver 0.494 grams, and even palladium a whole 0.002 grams. Take a look at this case study as a Soviet hammer, which also improved sound quality thanks to its decent volume. The 306 was louder than its counterparts, making it perfect for pioneer parties and street gatherings listening to Vysotsky or Freddie with Elton John. Although, for loving and imitating the latter, you could actually get prosecuted. However, despite being a Soviet product, it had its drawbacks. No auto stop, weak automatic recording level adjustment, and a stiff cassette compartment spring that wore out imported tapes like Sony, TDK, and BASF. By the way, that's a German company. Also, the lid would constantly fly off at least. That's what people often write in the comments under my videos. By the way, have you subscribed yet? If not, you should, because first of all, we have a Telegram channel with exclusive content. Be sure to check it out. There's also a forum where I sell various equipment. At the lowest prices, I build home theaters, first-class stereo systems, all done according to feng shui, and of course sound systems for cafes, bars, and restaurants. So you are very welcome. I've always been an advocate for the perfect balance of price and quality, so that every ruble you spend is worth it. That's why Bauers are my favorites. As for our unit, as you can see, it's fresh and beautiful. The lid, as always, hasn't fallen off straight from the factory just to spite the haters, my friends. What a great design! Look at these lines, the curves. Even the buttons are bright, blue, red, black. At the same time, there were versions in several colors, including black, lemon yellow, chocolate brown, orange, red, and even light cream, can you imagine? Creative Soviet citizens often came up with their own color combinations by repainting the case. It really was a fun time. By the way, back in my student days, I also painted my TV yellow. Did any of you do something like that, friends? Let me know in the comments. There were even so-called limited editions, for example, a model with the Olympics 80 emblem, and it cost 225 rubles instead of the standard 180 to 200 rubles. There was also a 60 years of the USSR version, and some units were displayed with a VDNH medal. A unique addition was a mini replica of the Romantic 306 at a 1/6 scale, which was part of the Prestige collection designed for self-assembly. Yes, that really existed. In fact, these are the kind of whales that were sold in the USSR. And yet people say that only the West was the most progressive. No, my friends, that's not true. The 306 was as reliable as the 47, only we're talking about the Kalashnikov rifle. Incredible durability and legendary dependability in absolutely any conditions. Always and everywhere, on land and at sea. And let's go over the main, so to speak, stories that were publicly available because they are truly insane. In street fights, the tape recorder served as a weapon, ending up with only scratches and cracks, but still working even after the opponent had broken bones and knocked out teeth. No wonder. With corners and power like that, one owner, while intoxicated after some street draft Zhigulevskoye beer, dropped the tape recorder from either the 3rd or the 5th floor, the accounts differ, but after the fall, it was still playing the cassette. And that again is incredible. And in 1987, a Romantic 306 fell into a river, but after being retrieved, it kept playing, although the speaker suffered a bit from the harsh environment. A young pioneer bought his first Romantic in 1982, and it worked without any breakdowns all the way until 1992, only needing the belts and the head replacement, even then just if you wanted to, not because it was necessary. And the craziest story is when on the night of Ivan Kupala, some witches threw it into a bonfire, then pulled it out with a shovel and it still worked. Do you believe these stories? Please write in the comments, friends. Personally, I'm inclined to say yes, because Soviet power. The Romantic 306 left a deep mark in the hearts of its owners. Here are a few stories. Nostalgia for youth. A user on Drive recalled how in 1987 he bought his first Romantic 306 and associated it with his youth and faith in the future. His unit was kept for 30 years and looked like new. Another owner noted that the tape recorder recorded excellently from vinyl, especially onto imported Sony and BASF cassettes, and never chewed them up, unlike more expensive models such as the Cometa 225. Today the Romantic is not just outdated equipment, but a cultural artifact that evokes nostalgia. It symbolizes an era when music was a means of self-expression and resistance against the system. Here it is a reminder of a time when a simple device could bring people together, give them a voice, and preserve memories. Its story is not just a story of technology, but also of human passion for music and freedom. Although undoubtedly the Japanese at that time were more progressive in some ways, on our side, as always, we had reliability. And let's quickly take a look at it, turn it on, and play a record. First of all, pay attention to the unusual symbols, because we're used to labels like stop and play, but these are Soviet designations. If socialism or communism had triumphed all over the world, I think these would be the very symbols we'd see now on our devices and smartphones. Take a look. A blue button, a red record button, a play button, rewind all of excellent quality, and everything works. Again, these controls are also certainly very well made, and they really do work. And of course, as you can see, you could definitely make some slight adjustments here if you prefer, as you might expect, as needed, if you so choose. And the label says electret microphone. And naturally, there's a reset as well. So when it's playing, what do we have here? Yes, it's running, but there's no sound, right? Usually, speakers dry out after 20 or 30 years, the suspensions deteriorate, but with this unit, absolutely nothing has been done. It's like new! I'm sure it will work. So, what shall we take? A cassette? A Gorletov? By the way, everything is going according to plan. JVC. So, let's try it. Place your bets, friends. And whoever writes an amazing story about the Romantic, or just leaves a reasonable comment, in about a month I'll give away this record in my Telegram channel. Ah, Egoroshka. Will you sing or not? The climax. Oh, the word substances. Notice, the volume hasn't even reached 2. What will happen at 10? Power.